Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Racing Line, the Formula One podcast by fans, for fans. Sport is one of those funny things that we have in life. Is it incredibly important to our survival? Probably not. But do we hang on every one of its moments? Absolutely we do. And sport is one of those funny things where victories and momentous wins are sometimes just as important as those massive losses and those moments in time where we lose everything. And Lando Norris, our boy Lando Norris, over the lovely young Brit boy, he has experienced that in a major way at an incredibly interesting Sochi race weekend. That's right, I said incredibly interesting because it doesn't always happen, but this time it has. I'm joined by Tristan Pocock to unpack all the events of the race weekend. Tristan, what was your race ranking, my friend?
Oh, hello, mate. Hello, listeners. Race ranking for this weekend, I'm going to give it a solid 8. It had everything that you wanted, didn't it? I mentioned the rain early on in the night, but while, you boys said you're all going to bed, and I said, hang on, hold stations, because she's going to rain. Well done to you, mate, for sticking around and going through with a live race watch.
I know.
Which, for all of our listeners, we know is very, very much not like you.
Well,
so a solid 8 for me, mate.
Okay, all right. I'm going to give it a 9. I very rarely give a 9. Like I'll never give a 10. I don't think a 10 can happen, but a 9. I think it was probably our best race weekend for the year, and we've had some absolutely spectacular races. Netherlands excluded. I think it's been a really fantastic race season. And
I think so too.
This one,
you know what? I think we will see a 10 though. You mentioned a 10. We keep saying. I think we started most episodes with saying we're not going to see a 10. And if we're single digit points, no, if we're under 5 points when we go to Abu Dhabi, that's going to be a 10, isn't it? You can sort of. Can we pencil that in right now? I'm going to pencil that in right now. If we're under,
could be a 10 might
5,
need to be a championship decider. Yeah,
I think Abu Dhabi is going to be a 10.
Okay,
all right. Said that before the season started.
But anyway. for me, this race was so interesting all the way through. It was you were sitting on the edge of your seat the whole way through, and then to get that just add water moment right at the end. It was a spectacular race, and if you were ever thinking of getting involved in watching Formula One racing, this was the race to be involved in because it was incredibly interesting. Probably one of those races where you did need to know what was going on a little bit for it to be that interesting because there weren't all those overtakes throughout the race, but it was it was a spectacular race. I enjoyed it immensely. Sochi isn't usually a place that you would enjoy, Tristan. Was this the best Sochi race you've ever seen?
I would have to say it is the best Sochi race. However, Sochi is still trash, and thank goodness that is this year the last year? Or
no, we've got one more. Got one more.
I think we've got one more. So good on it for going out on a semi-high. I don't think we're going to get that next year, that's for sure. But I don't know one good race out of a dozen certainly doesn't make a racetrack. So pleased to see the back of Sochi, as I hope many F1 fans are. But you're also seeing the back of Paul Ricard, mate, which I'm sure we'll mention later on in the news. So nice to see these tracks, these nowhere tracks going.
It's interesting. This season we've seen Paul Ricard wasn't too bad this year. We've seen some really, really interesting racing at some tracks that isn't usually that interesting.
No,
it's a real shame to be losing these cars, isn't it? Because finally the pack is bunching up. We're seeing some racing. We're seeing times where cars can outrace the top guns. No, they're not quite with them all the way through the season, but for a lot of the season, the McLarens and the Ferraris, and even in some cases, as we've seen, like the AlphaTauris, have been competitive against them. And when the situation's right and when the season's as close as it is this year, we've been able to see some really entertaining racing. It's one of those things. I mean, we've been crying out for a change in the regulations so we can bring the racing closer together. And just as we're about to do that, all of a sudden the racing gets closer together. It's one of those catch-22s, isn't it?
This will be the catalyst for future generations and future regulation changes. That, in fact, no change is probably exactly what you need.
Well, I think having the change coming up has been probably one of the driving points for why this season's so good, because everyone's
Yeah, it could
stopped
have been,
their
that's
development
yeah.
and
Yeah, I didn't
everything's
think
come
of that.
together a little bit. So, yeah, it is one of those. It's one of those weird situations, isn't it, where you don't want it to end, but it is exciting of what's to come. All the usual business tonight, mate. We're going to be talking our way through
All the usual.
all the race weekend. We have got some Beyond the Bet there. We've got some F1.5 standings, which I'm excited to find out about.
Oh, I'm very excited about F1.5. As should everyone be.
We've got our race reviews and rankings. We've got Dud of the Day, which is it's hard to choose one this time around. We've got a little bit of news, and we've got a little bit of social interactions. But before we get into any of that, opening question, and we had a little discussion about this. I couldn't quite work out how to phrase this one, and I'm pretty sure I've forgotten it. So it's the opposite of snatching victory from the jaws of defeat, which means that, and obviously we're talking about Lando here, what's a different moment where your team's been bound for glory and then at the last moment it's been taken away from them? Can you think of a moment where that's happened, Tristan, in another sporting manner?
My beloved Magpies, for Australian listeners,
AFL football, that is, Australian football.
Supporter, AFL. And in 2018, only a handful of years ago, mate, what is now one of the most infamous grand finals, they led all day, which, 1 hour, and God, I can actually tell you the exact point. I've seen it that many times. With 2 minutes and 14 seconds on the clock, they were a point up and then they were 2 points up and then went 4 points down as Dom Sheed kicked one of the most miraculous and what will be, forever one of the greatest, sadly, goals in AFL history. And he put the Eagles up, and then that was it. It was all over. And I think we led by an hour and 45 minutes. We were in front, and with just a tick over 2 minutes to go.
Brings me
runners up again,
so
mate.
Much joy to hear you describe all of that. The thing about that game, and this is probably more for our Australian listeners, but the thing about that game is the lead up to that goal too, because it was just this kick and mark down the line, and the next kick down the line, and then this man was kicking from a long way out and from a really tight angle. It was a very difficult shot, and he put it straight through the middle. And yeah, that was great.
That was it all over. Runners up again, mate.
I enjoyed that.
So that would be my moment.
I enjoyed that a lot. Thank you for going through that with me.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I could bring it up again.
Yeah, that's great. For me, I'm going to stick with Formula One. Remember when Ricciardo was leading, and I don't think he'd actually had a win at this stage. Remember he was leading, and I can't for the life of me remember what the track was, but he got a flat right at the end. Flat tyres blew out, and it was going to be, I think it was either his first or second win, and I can't remember for the life of me. People will be calling out at the moment. It was very early on in his career, and that one for me just, And then the other one is obviously the multi-21. Webber had the race. He was in the situation where he had the race. No one was going to catch him. The driver's been told to stay in formation, and then all of a sudden Seb had other ideas back when Seb wasn't the nice Seb that we now know and love and cherish. For all those people listening at home who have been contacting me still about my hatred towards Seb, I don't hate him. But yeah, when Seb wasn't that nice guy, he went and went against Team Waters and took on Webber when he wasn't expecting it and stole the victory.
As well.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Yep.
And there's been lots of F1 moments, mate. I'm glad that you point that up. I was having a look today for one of the socials, which will be, hopefully I'll get that together next week. But you've got Leclerc in Bahrain in 2019. Ned was ready for his first win in the Ferrari power failure. You've then got Russell in Bahrain. When he had the Merc stint, was leading, and then the flat,
yeah,
and
of
got
course.
Bottas in Baku with a handful of laps from home, and then debris, and then bam, it was gone.
Of course.
What else you got? You got Ricciardo at Monaco with the no tyres. It's so many. I think even Albon, was it Albon in Brazil? I don't know if he was in front or I think he was about to take the lead.
Yep.
And then was punted by Hamilton too. So a lot of recent ones too, which you sort of forget, don't you, since what we had on the weekend with Lando, that this is something that's happened quite a lot in only a handful of years.
Absolutely. I think this one was made worse because it was going to be his first victory, wasn't it?
I think so too. I think so too. We've only had a couple of those, so.
Yep. So this one probably hurt him a lot. Let's get into race weekend. Qualifying was a really interesting situation where, we'd only had the 2 sessions on the Friday, and then free practice 3 was cancelled due to the weather. And then they did get out into qualifying, and in Q3 was the important time where it was drying up, and so they were running on inters, and it was drying up. It did the opposite to the race, and those who decided to go to slicks early enough benefited from it enough because they were able to heat the tyres up and get in the fast laps, and it meant that we saw a bit of a different grid. We didn't see our stock standard grid where we have the absolute fastest at the front and so forth. We saw a grid where even though we had drivers at the back of the grid, we didn't see our fastest cars at the very front, and Lando managed to get his first pole position. It was a great qualifying session as well, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a fantastic qualifying session, and it sort of got me thinking about sprint qualifying again this weekend, because we saw another really high quality qualifying session. Albeit the rain played a part in that too, but I think some of the best qualifying sessions have not been the sprint ones, and that was probably my first thought. I'd love to know what other people were thinking about too, and you're seeing these really awesome qualifying sessions that we're getting. Sort of not getting that with the sprint ones, in my view, that is. But yeah, I thought it was great. It was really good. And to see Russell as well nail it for P3, just fantastic. It was really good. It was another really, really good qualifying session.
We didn't probably discuss this enough after our sprint qualifying last time out.
Yep.
What is your ideal qualifying format for the season? Tell me what your ideal would be.
I think my ideal one would be, look, honestly, first preference is exactly what we've got now.
Yeah.
Because it's working. It's not broken, so I don't know why we're trying to fix it. But I think if we're looking for another alternative, I'd just love to see the single lap shootout that we used to have. For me, what we've got now is the best version. I think it's terrific, and I think it works well. And I think if you wanted to do anything different, spice it up a bit, go and do the single lap shootout. Because that was probably, if we didn't have this format now, for me, that's the best format too. So anything outside of that, for me, it hasn't worked and it doesn't work.
Can you think of a reason why we can't have 3 different formats throughout the same season? So, if you think about the fact that we could have certain tracks do the 3-day qualifying format, the 2-day qualifying format, where they do the qualifying on the Friday and then they move into a sprint race on the Saturday. If we had that in certain places, and those certain places might be able to even wrangle some things like some run it on public holidays in those particular countries, or bank holidays for those people playing overseas. So you might be able to try and tee up those races around those times where they back onto these bigger weekends and create more of a weekend around it, and then have some times where we have a one-lap shootout where tracks don't really allow for a full grid to be qualifying on. I'm thinking the likes of Monaco might be a good spot to have that one-lap shootout. Yeah. We might be able to have some other tracks where it doesn't really quite suit it. And then, for the remainder of the season, or for the other third of the season, run your typical qualifying that we see at the moment. Is there a reason why we couldn't be doing that? Just to spice things up? It's only qualifying. It's not like we're going for points.
Yeah. I don't know. I think maybe if you're going to do something like that, I think you're right in what you're saying with the track. The track's got to be different. If you look at IndyCar, they qualify in 2 different ways, from a standard circuit to an oval race. Your oval race is your 3-lap average speed, and that's your qualifying position. And then if you're looking at circuit racing, it's timed. But then they're 2 totally different circuits and totally different styles of racing. And I think in F1 we don't really have that in F1 though. I think
I wouldn't get too hung up on making it track specific, because
you could go like lap distance. Like we had 58 on the weekend, but then you get some where you have 72 laps. So you could do that, and then you've got some that are. What was Sakir last year? Last year was like under 50 seconds we were, so that was a quick lap. could look at that, but I don't know. Look, probably not. I think you'd get too many variables. Fans would get frustrated, I reckon.
Yeah, and that's the issue, is that you don't want to overcomplicate the sport. But I think because it's not the race, and you don't. I'm with people. We don't want to dilute the race. We don't want to dilute the Grand Prix. But I think because it's qualifying, I think it, once again, I mean, everyone knows I like making life really difficult for the teams, and if they can't just get stuck into the same format over and over and get into those routines, if we keep it fairly mixed up and we are changing qualifying formats, I mean, and you make it absolutely known to the teams at the start and the fans at the start of the year that we're going to use the 3 different formats, I think there's real... I don't know, I really think that it could keep things interesting and spiced up, and just to keep the teams on their toes, as always. I'm always looking to keep the teams on the toes, but I think it could... I mean, qualifying's pretty good in Monaco in the format that we've got, but I can't see it being worse if we went to a one-lap shootout. I really can't see it being worse in a one-lap shootout.
Well, if you look at Q3, it's kind of 2 mini one-lap shootouts, isn't it? It's just you get 2 goes at it. I'd be interested to see if we went back and had a look at all the Q3 sessions across the year and the first run, how different the grid would look to the second run.
Yep.
Think of who doesn't nail it first go.
Yep.
And then, if Max doesn't nail it first time round, we can come in, throw a new set on. Right, I know what it did last time. I'm going to have another go. Interested to see that. Maybe we might do that. Go back and have a look if we had a one-lap shootout for Q3, what the grid would have looked like.
Yeah. Certainly, it would certainly be interesting. But yeah, I realised we didn't sort of finish that conversation last time out. But that'd be my suggestion, is to change it around. It would be an interesting one. I'd love to hear what people have to say about that and which is their favourite format. Because I don't think I have a favourite format, to be honest with you. I think change is worthwhile. But yeah, we saw a really interesting qualifying session. That made for a really interesting race, Tristan, I think.
It did, yes, very much so.
In terms of, we saw that grid that had so many variables in there, and we saw that Norris was starting on pole, and then we had the Ferrari, that's a battle in itself of science, and then Russell was there, and Hamilton wasn't too far away, and Ricciardo, and we know the McLarens, I tell you what, they're starting on the line beautifully at the moment. And then we saw drivers like Verstappen at the back, Leclerc at the back, Bottas at the back, and so it meant for a really, really interesting race, and it was another example of why it's great to have fast cars all over the grid. When they're starting a race, it was really interesting watching these key players come through the grid, or in some people's cases, not coming through the grid at all. So yeah, it made for a really interesting start of the race where I had no idea what was going to happen. I didn't know who was going to be leading into the first corner. I didn't know how quickly the teams were going to come through, particularly here at Sochi, where it's typically quite difficult to overtake. And we saw some brilliant overtakes on the weekend, and I thought these cars, once again, are playing into the drivers' hands where they are. Like, teams are having to come up with different ways of making these things happen, and being on dramatically different tyre schemes or tyre management programs was a really interesting part of the race. But yeah, we got away, and it was Sainz that took the lead. He made a massive move into turn 3, I think it was, on Norris, and took off. But Norris didn't take too long to go and track him down, and then we saw the events where Norris was in control and Hamilton was chasing him down. The speed of Hamilton was getting into the right spot, and then all of a sudden the rain came. We just added water, and it was probably, outside of Mazepin, those who pitted earliest benefited the most. And it was an incredible finish to a race where all sorts of great work throughout a standard race was being done by the likes of Alonso, by the likes of Perez, by the likes of... Who else did we have? I mean, Verstappen was there anyway. But then lots of that great work was all undone. Oh, Norris is the key one, isn't it? All undone with adding the rain and not wanting to throw in all their good work, because all those people had made up so much ground, and they were the ones that were least willing to come in early they were outside of Verstappen. They were the ones that were least willing to come in early, and it cost them dearly in this situation. And we saw the rain come down, and those who came in for inters the soonest sort of benefited the most, and it became too difficult. Let's get into the race. Well, anything else about the race before we get into the drivers, mate?
I think you made a really good point about the unknown of who was going to lead into turn one, and I think that's because we had three guys that we don't usually see leading into turn one, so we don't really know what they're going to do or how they're going to approach it. So that was probably quite refreshing, to be honest.
It was, yeah.
You know, we didn't know if, was George going to throw it down the inside and lead.
Yep, absolutely. We typically, the way we go through the field is we start with the winner, and then we do his teammate and go through that way. So Hamilton, I mean, it was a great drive. He messed up qualifying where he decided not to come into the slicks. He knew better. He hit a wall when he was coming in, and that threw extra issues. And I had a lot of people asking me whether I thought that it was becoming too much for Hamilton. Hamilton commented on, is the championship becoming too much for Verstappen? But it sort of got thrown back at him. Is all of this becoming too hard for Hamilton at the moment, or is it becoming too much? And he wasn't willing to come in and change to the inters. That not getting out and doing that soon enough was costing him big time. It was. But by the time race time came, it was the good old Hamilton that we know. He didn't get the greatest of starts. He didn't jump straight to the lead. He had to work his way through the field, but he was sort of doing that fairly well. He got jumped by, I think, Ricciardo at the start. He didn't have the greatest of starts and then got stuck behind Ricciardo, but Hamilton's probably greatest asset at the moment as a racing car driver is the fact that he's patient. And he knew that if he waited it out and if he made sure he looked after his tyres, the race was going to come back to him, and it came back to him. And before the rain even came, he was chasing down for first position. I mean, he pitted at a really, really critical time. He waited it out for as long as he could, looked after those tyres, and then went about chasing down the gap to Norris. And it was going to be a battle. It was going to be a battle without the rain, with 10 laps to go. I think it was within a second, and then Norris looked like he was able to hold him off. But I feel like Hamilton was just waiting for those tyres of Norris's to go off slightly because they were a little bit older than what Hamilton's was. Thoughts on the Hamilton race, mate?
Yeah, I think the Merc on the hard is very, very good. So I think that's becoming a theme over the year that when they get on the hard tyre, they're much better than what they are on the soft. So I think that's something to look out for. I disagree with you. I don't think he would have got Lando. I wasn't saying he was going to get him. I think he was. He went about waiting for the opportunity.
Yeah, he went about getting to that 1 second. Norris then showed us what he had, and showed Hamilton what he had. He showed that he still had sectors. He went and set the fastest lap in that time. But I think that Hamilton was almost preying on Norris's vulnerability as being an unusual race leader by knowing that Norris might go and then do a little bit too much on his tyres and then have a crack with 5 to go, because that was happening at 10 laps to go.
Yeah,
and his tyres were that slightly younger. I think that he was just going to let that happen and then go and have another crack. And I'm not saying that he was going to go and win it by absolutely certainty. It was going to be close. I mean, we saw Ricciardo hold him off for a really long time, but his patience is really important to him, and I think it's one of his best assets at the moment. I think he was being nice and patient and waiting his time.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Look, I think it's something that we need to be that's the mentality that he's got now, the championship. As it, he's got to bide his time, and he's got to wait it out, and live to fight another day as such. And
100%, yeah.
I think a bit of luck fell his way too with Lando not making the correct call.
Oh, absolutely.
He should have been, and I think if Dan was in front, he would have made the right call. If that was Seb up front, he would have made the right call. If that was Fernando out front, so I think he was quite fortunate with the way that it fell. For what is also, I have to mention, his 100th Grand Prix win.
Amazing, isn't it?
100 triple. That is just we look at at Schumacher's record of 91. I think Seb is third on the all-time list with 58. The question today on the socials is, will anyone ever get to 100 again? Which I guess Seb's the only one that's close enough to doing that, isn't he? But, which is a phenomenal feat. And I think it showed how difficult Lewis has had it this year. You say difficult because he hasn't had it all his own way. Because he's challenged for the first time in, 7 seasons. And it's the Rosberg season in 16.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, and it's only his third victory for the year. So, yeah.
It's a... I still worry that I don't take in enough of what he's doing at the moment, because people will be talking about that driver forever, won't they?
Yeah.
Lewis Hamilton will be spoken about forever.
Absolutely they will.
As the greatest, or one of the absolute greats, like people do about Senna, and we weren't really Senna people because we weren't old enough to be Senna people. And you hear about the other greats, Fangio, and you hear about Mansell and all the other Moss. Yep. Yeah, that's right. And so he'll well and truly be in amongst them, and yeah, incredible effort. He had to win the race, though, didn't he? I mean, particularly in the lead up to this race, it was all about Mercedes are going to win this. What can Red Bull get out of it? And then all of a sudden it looked like he wasn't going to win it, and it was one that he had to win, and he did. He managed to go and get it. Really important for the championship, but I mean, who knows? Let's move on to Bottas. He was having an absolute stinker. He was. Tell me about this business of an engine penalty.
Yeah, did you think it was strategic? I put it out on the socials.
Changing an engine as a strategic move to try and hold up Verstappen. Do you think it was?
I do, because Valtteri didn't. What didn't he finish? I'm just trying to think where he didn't finish. It's escaped me for life of me. But
when he came together with Russell.
Yeah, he's not finished 1 or 2 even. So he's got a fresh engine there, because he's effectively 2 full Grand Prix distances in the green for mileage on the engine. So I think it wasn't announced. Of course they're not going to go and announce that. And there was lots of speculation. But for me, as soon as I saw it, that was my first thought, and my only thought is that they know Max is at the back, and, the Haas and the Alfa Romeo and probably Tsunoda, they're not going to be huge combatants when they see Max charging through the field. All they're going to do is jump out the way, and they're not going to do anything else. So I very much believe that Toto and the brain power at Mercedes thought, let's throw our man at the back.
Tell me, and it wasn't just you that was talking about this. It was all over the paddock.
I think because it was so obvious.
What's the plan? Tell me though, what's the plan? Like, how do you hold somebody up?
Well, I think just making it difficult to follow, because obviously the Mercs are undefeated in Russia, including this year. Like, they are undefeated.
But at some stage, like, Bottas comes across the other drivers. What's he going to do? Just sit behind them, and then all of a sudden Verstappen goes around. I just can't see how that strategy pays off in any way. I mean, and what we eventually saw was a Bottas that wasn't on board, because he just let him glide straight past.
Yeah, well, Bottas doesn't care. That's it. That's what they were counting on. If you look at Valtteri's pace in FP1 and FP2, Russia is his backyard. Like, he dominates in Russia. And he did. He just got straight in the car. He turned up to Sochi and just went bang, bang. And he was on it like he always is. And it was pretty much going to be a pole and a win if he hadn't have botched qualifying.
So let's go to the other...
Yep.
Absolutely, these strategies don't always work out. But surely the better strategy is making sure Bottas ends up behind Hamilton and makes a bigger gap, an extra person between Hamilton and Verstappen. I mean, and it would have been absolutely worthwhile doing it this weekend, because Verstappen ended up on 18 points instead of somewhere else. I mean, if Bottas was taking up that place, it would have been 15 points for him and an extra 3 points in the championship to Lewis. But, I mean, Bottas... in a way, he drove like that wasn't the plan, because he didn't back him off, but he also drove like a person that didn't give a shit about anything.
Well, that's exactly right.
And he was fuming that he was put in this situation and just dawdled around in 14th position.
Yeah, my theory on this is if Valtteri had to put it on pole, with a couple of laps to go, he would have waved Lewis through because it would have been a Mercedes 1-2. And I think that's what everyone thought was going to transpire. I think every fan did, every commentator, pretty much I think every driver after the practice sessions thought and said, well, this is the Mercs to lose. Qualifying happened. Suddenly Lewis is fourth, Valtteri is seventh, and they're thinking, oh, hang on here. Lewis has got to work his way through. Valtteri's got to work his way through. There's a huge chance that Max can get past Valtteri in seventh. So why don't we park Valtteri right in front of Max and let's put all our eggs in one basket. Let's get Lewis to win with 25 points and let's get Max to 10th at best because you could just put a roadblock in his way in the terms of Valtteri. That's my theory on that. But you're totally spot on. That plan didn't work because Valtteri saw him and he's like, that's right, I'm driving for Alfa Romeo for the next 4 years. Go through, mate. Yeah. And you know what, we've got to expect that because it's Ferrari dumping Seb all over again. It really is. Like, I look at that.
I mean, I don't think that was their plan, but if that was their plan, absolutely, that's what it looked like. I mean, it looked like that in general. On it. It looked like that in general. It looked like Bottas just could not be arsed being there. I mean, he was electric at this track. He loves this track, but he was absolutely woeful on the weekend until the end result. I mean, he was one that benefited by pitting really early and ended up in fifth position. He went from 14th to 5th because he pitted at the right time. He was one of the first to pit, and managed to come home in fifth. And all of a sudden, it looks like an okay result for him, but it certainly wasn't. It was a woeful weekend for Bottas, and
I think we need to adjust our expectations of Bottas too now, because I don't think I think he could probably snatch a win before the year's out. I think he really could. But I don't think for Valtteri, anything less than a podium is necessarily a bad weekend because
no, it is.
Really
it's terrible. He's in the fastest car. I mean, that's incredibly unprofessional.
He doesn't
I
care.
think there was something else going on with the Vettel situation, where I don't think they were giving him the materials that he needed or the machinery that was required. Whereas with Bottas,
it's similar in the sense of a team dumping a driver.
He has all the machinery. He should be driving through that field beautifully. If he does go along this track, that's really unprofessional of him. And I'll actually start thinking less of him. I really like the man, but I'll actually start thinking less of him. I was starting to think that way when he was sitting in 14th position of a track that he can absolutely dominate any other weekend. I was starting to think, oh, you know what? This isn't the Bottas I like. I'd like to see him charge through the field and do the best he could. But I think he is a man that needs to be inspired. I think he really does need to be inspired to do his absolute best. I haven't read into this sort of thing until Ricardo started talking about it the other week. I think he is a bit down and out, and I don't think it is a professionalism thing. I think it is just an inspired sort of a situation for him. Let's get into Max. Max came from the back of the field, the very back of the field, all the way through to second spot. He was powering through the field. He took no time to get around Bottas. He was charging through the field, and just as it started getting a little slippery was when he really started to come alive. And the rain hadn't arrived yet, but there must have been a little bit of drizzle coming in because he really picked up some positions right before the rain came. And even before, I think he was in 7th or 8th position just as things started to hot up with the situation with the rain. But he moved from there through to about 4th position. He picked off Ricciardo, he picked off the Ferrari boys, he picked off, I think, Alonso as well, and really got himself into a really fantastic spot, and then took advantage of the rain. And I was so impressed with his control and through all of that, because obviously tyres were going off with these boys. Sainz pitted early, Ricciardo pitted earlier than him, so he's obviously picking them off with his better tyres in this situation. And then when the rain came, he came in early. It was a nice call. It was nice and certain. There was no messing around. They knew what they were doing, the Red Bull boys and Max. And then, drove their way into second position once Norris had his issue. Great race by the man, wasn't it?
It could not have worked out in a more perfect fashion for Red Bull. And, they needed something to go their way because they've been on the receiving end of some unfortunate incidences this year. And this is the perfect... It was a race weekend to perfection for those guys that it just NFL, sometimes you watch sport and just umpire decisions and a ball just bounces for one team in the correct way that it should, and, tackles stick and decisions go the one way, and it was exactly that. It just, everything that needed to go their way went their way, and I am so thankful that it did, because can you imagine if, I think the championship, it would have been really disheartening, as much as, it sounds like I'm Hamilton bashing here, but it would have been really disheartening to see Lewis take a double-digit lead into the next race. And I just, knowing that it's only 2 points, it's perfect. It is just 7 to go. There's 2 in it. It's perfect. It's exactly what we needed as fans too.
Do you think Mercedes need a bigger lead than what they've got now?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They need a win and a bit more. They really do.
I'm not caring whether Verstappen or Hamilton wins this championship. But I want the championship to be as exciting as possible. So at this stage of the championship, I want Mercedes picking up more. So I was hoping that Max wasn't going to pick up too many points. If he was finishing outside of the points, I would have started getting a little bit worried, because I feel like that's a big amount to try and pull back. But yeah, I was hoping he was going to be, I don't know, maybe a 5th or 6th, which was going to give Mercedes a few extra points. Because I think
he would have had like an 8 or a 12-point lead. And see, for me, I didn't want that. I'm so thankful that it's 2.
Yep.
Imagine we get to Abu Dhabi and it's just 2 points in it.
That's the dream, isn't it? That's the dream.
It is, and it's just whoever finishes in front is the winner.
It was as good. It was probably better than a win. I mean, they didn't get to celebrate as a win because they weren't standing on the top step. But as a team, it was as good as a win, I thought, on the weekend. And they minimised the damage beautifully. I mean, they're probably going to be finishing second on a normal race weekend, as it is. If everything went to plan, maybe third. And so they managed to go and get a fresh engine and still do that. What a fantastic result for them. Perez was another man who was cruising through the field beautifully. He didn't qualify very well. It's a typical situation for Perez. But he just cruised through that field beautifully and was racing really, really well. Got himself into a really a fantastic position by pitting so late. He looked after those first set of tyres so beautifully, and then had all the rubber to play with at the end. And I was really excited. I thought he might have been going to be finishing on the podium. It was going to be a really, really fine race for Red Bull. And then the rain came, and he was one that had done all the hard work and didn't want to go and waste all that hard work by pitting unnecessarily for Inters. But unfortunately, they didn't give him the same information that they gave Max. They probably split the strategy a little bit just to be safe, but it cost him in the end. But it was a really great drive from Perez, mate.
It was a good drive. I'm going to controversially say this. I think we need to start putting the heat on Perez.
The qualifying pace, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Well, I think in race pace too, because I was looking at some numbers in that before we come on air. In the last 6 races, Russell has scored the same amount of points as what Perez has.
That's I used to run those sorts of numbers with Kimi a few years ago. You can't look at those situations though, because you think of all the situations that Perez has been in.
True, he has been. I think for me, he's won this year already, which is good. But he needs a couple of podiums. Not just necessarily because he's desperate for it, but he's doing a good job. He's in some really good situations. You're right, but I think he needs to convert a couple.
I couldn't agree more. But
that's all.
I think his race pace is fine. But
his race pace is fine, but I just want to see him convert a couple because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking you're starting to finish 5th. And you know what? We were critical of Albon. We were critical of Gasly as well for doing the same thing. And I think we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't mention the same for Perez as well. As experienced and terrific as he's been.
Red Bull have finally come out and said that they really need to develop a car that 2 drivers can drive. They've all of a sudden realised that, hang on, it's not these gun hot shots that are coming in causing this car not to go fast. All of a sudden they've got a very qualified driver in, and he's also having these issues. I mean, he
right.
isn't driving this car as fast as what Max is driving it on the weekend, and while that's understandable, you might be a tenth or two off him, but he's more than that, and he is finding this car really difficult to get a hold of, which goes to show that, I mean, Albon and Gasly both need to be given extra chances because they were hot shots, they were guns. And
that's exactly right.
Yeah, so they've finally admitted that their car needs to be not just Max driven, because I think they're also finding that this championship's a whole lot harder, even with a good partner in there, and they need that car to be able to be in a more competitive position. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they need that car to be getting second, and Lewis being third,
100%.
Instead of Max being first and Lewis being second.
Yep.
They need to jump in every now and then. Race 4 we're second. Race 7 we're first and second. They need to figure the point difference if you had just your rear gunner in front of your main rival.
Yep, absolutely. Sainz had a fantastic weekend, qualified really well, and then took the lead. Wasn't able to hold the lead. I think the McLarens sort of suited this track more, and Norris was obviously on top of it. But yeah, he drove really well and still managed to, after all of that, still managed to end up in third, which I thought was a pretty decent effort. It was a fine race with everything that went on. He still managed to get the job done.
Yeah, absolutely. It probably sums up Sainz's weekend, doesn't it? Qualified really, really well. Hit it early, and that hurt him.
Then
the rain.
Yep.
The rain came, got him back up, and it was a nice, solid drive. And
held off
a well-deserved podium.
Yep, absolutely. Held off a fast-coming Ricciardo midway through the race.
Absolutely.
And moving on to Ricciardo. So Ricciardo qualified well, wasn't looking like he was going to qualify well. He sort of got saved by the rain in the end, snuck into Q3 and then made the most of it, which we certainly know good drivers will do that. But it certainly wasn't Monza speed that Ricciardo was enjoying like his teammate. Then had a really interesting race. He started beautifully. These McLarens are starting off the line really well, but in particular Ricciardo. I mean, I don't think Norris is starting quite as well as Ricciardo at the moment. But then didn't manage to keep a slipstream. He sort of started too well. He said he'd actually backed off so he could drop back into a slipstream, and by then the straight sort of disappeared on him. But and then it cost him by being behind Russell. But at one stage it sort of looked like he could have been first or second. He then went about a really comprehensive race. He pushed along really well. He held off Hamilton for a really long time and he was one of the middle bracket pit stop people. There was early pit stoppers, the middle, and then there was the really late ones. And the really late ones, if you could make it work for yourself, it was perfect. Alonso, Perez were one of them. And I think the two leaders were sort of part of that as well. But Ricciardo pitted sort of in that mid-range. He looked after his tyres enough to be competitive until that mid-range. Finally came in for some tyres, which I think he probably could have lasted a little bit longer, but I think they were sort of starting to think, right, well, I'm going to make the most of this second lot of tyres. We don't want to have all this rubber left over at the end, so we'll go and make the most of it. And then the pit stop went astray for him. They messed up the pit stop big time, and it cost him a huge amount. But it was really difficult to try and quantify what that cost him on track, because he lost positions and he ended up going out behind Gasly, I think, who he quickly overtook, but it was taking life out. He couldn't get straight onto it, and it was really difficult. I think he was still going to end up behind Sainz, and I think it was Perez at the time, or I can't remember who it was, but I think he would have been in a better situation to go and attack them if they had pitted him in a correct amount of time. And so yeah, it was really costly in the end, and I feel like it certainly cost him a podium, because I think he would have probably got Sainz quite comfortably in the end. And so yeah, it was a great drive. He managed to pull the move off. I think he got jumped right at the end of that stint. I think his tyres weren't in a great spot when the drizzle started to come. He got a little bit slippery. He talked about being in the wrong direction a few times. Got overtaken. I think he was down to 7th by the time he pitted for the tyres, but then made it all work for him then, and he finished in 4th position, which was a good result, but I think it might have just sort of glorified what was probably a bit more of an average weekend for him. a solid but average weekend. Thoughts on Ricciardo?
Yeah, I think the botched pit stop is what certainly held him back. At one stage, it was almost looking like another McLaren 1-2.
It was a possibility,
which,
yeah. It really was.
I don't know what they've done after the summer break, but that thing is just on fire, and they have come out punching again. How's this for like a flip? We'll definitely see now, whatever they've done over the summer break, at the start of the year, I said we're not going to see any podiums from Dan or anything like that, which,
I remember. Don't worry, I remember.
We weren't. Yes, I know. At the time, we weren't. But now, after the summer break, I don't know what's happened or what they've done. I certainly look forward to finding out what it is that they've done. But they look like they are going to take race victories. Like, they're a huge chance that, like, if Jay is going to be punting with beyond the bet, then yes, everyone seems to be starting to look at the McLarens and going, well,
as value.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're either going to see a Red Bull win, or we're going to see a Mercedes win, or suddenly we're starting to throw the McLarens in the conversation, saying, actually, well, maybe the McLarens could win this end, which it was a 2-horse race at the start of the year, and now suddenly we've got a third car in there that could be disrupting a few weekends and pinching a couple here and there, or taking a 1-2. And I think it's terrific. So them, along with the Alpine and the Williams, whatever they've done after the summer break, they have taken enormous gains, those three teams.
I'll be really interested to see if it's track dependent, though. I mean, Monza was certainly expected to be benefiting them. They're expected to be pretty solid here, not quite this solid, but pretty solid at Sochi. But there'll certainly be still tracks that suit them. But I'll be interested to see.
Well, that's right, because Seidel came out in the days before the race weekend saying, "Hey, don't expect too much of us, because don't forget we were absolutely decimated in Zandvoort." And I think the whole team didn't expect, and then suddenly Lando's on pole, and then suddenly Lando leads every single lap except for 4, and Dan launches at the start, and we're all going, hang on, this is going to be a McLaren 1-2. So
let's remember, like, Norris is on pole because of the weather situation, and then
very true.
And then it was a track that is difficult to overtake. Mind you, we saw some really great overtakes on the weekend. I think we can take away that it's impossible to overtake. It's just difficult to overtake. You got to be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I agree. They've certainly come along. I still think it's very dependent on things going wrong with others. But yeah, it's an exciting situation to be in. Norris, let's move on to Norris, because I mean, he's our man. We can't
the Heartbreak Kid.
Couldn't talk about him first this time, which was so close. But yeah, I mean, the young kid, he is fantastic to hear talk, and I love the way he goes about his racing. He's on absolute fire this year. He had that race absolutely under control. He couldn't have done anything more. He's qualified beautifully. He was managing pace, like we talked about with Hamilton. He was holding Hamilton off. Whether Hamilton was going to come and be able to find something else to go and take him, he was really confident that he was in a really great situation. And then you just add water, and the whole thing just unravelled on him. When the experienced drivers were coming in for the Inters because they didn't have as much to lose, he wasn't able to make that call. He wasn't able to do that because he was the race leader. If you go and make a silly call from the race lead, you're forever that guy that went and got the Inters when he didn't need to. But the writing was on the wall. That's the issue, and he will be so much better off for it. Norris is going to have learnt so much from this situation, where he knows only a certain amount, and he's going to have to rely on his team to give him the rest of the information. What do you think about it?
Look, I was praying that he was going to hang on, because I was just watching and it come down, and and I wanted it to get slippery. I was like, the rain's coming. We were saying it's coming, and I thought, I really want it to come because I want to see what happened, and then it did. And then it got really challenging for him, and I was just praying. I was just like, hold on. And then when he slipped into the wall, I was like, no, that's it. And it was just, I was gutted. I was gutted for him. I just think, because it was another opportunity to see another first-time winner out. And if you think about when we saw Gasly win, that was the most exciting win that I've seen in so many years because it was new. And then suddenly we've got Lando, who he should have won Spa, would have won Spa. And I think I can totally understand his devastation, which is what it was. It was pure devastation. Like, he was in tears at the press conferences and in the pen and talking to Sky. And I think for him, if you put yourself in his shoes, you'd be looking at the car you've got now, the results that you've had, looking at next year and going, we don't know if we're going to be quick next year. Like, we all don't know what the pecking order is going to be next year. And he's probably thinking, I need to make hay while the sun is shining right now because we're qualifying on pole. We're taking seconds. We're taking thirds. We've just had a 1-2. He could have won Spa. He's on pole again thinking, I could win this as well. He's probably getting a bit anxious going, if I don't win now, there's no guarantee I'm going to win in the future. I heard lots of people saying, it'll come and you'll have a win, but there's no guarantee of that in Formula One, like at all whatsoever. Look at Nico Hülkenberg in his entire career, where everyone was like, "You'll get it, mate. You'll absolutely get your win." Well, how many Grand Prix? 157, something like that, and nothing. So, yeah, I think experience is what did him in the end, to be honest.
Absolutely,
and you're right. Yep.
McLaren needs to take part of a fair chunk of the blame because they weren't strong enough on giving him more information, even though he told him to shut up and no, and I think in a way they wanted just to leave him to it to go and make it happen. But Hamilton also said he wasn't going to come in. He also refused the first call for box in the he missed one. They asked him to come in. He said no. He went around and they said, no, look, there's more coming. You need to come in. And he said, rightio, confirm box. And then he talked through, which the track's drying, man, the track's drying. And then they said to him, more's coming. And he just trusted in his team. And that was really important. And that's the thing that Norris wasn't able to do. I feel like McLaren sort of dropped the ball on a couple of situations. I think strategy could have been a little bit better for Dan. I also think that obviously the pit stop was no good, but I think here they could have been a little stronger. But there's another part of me that's really pleased it was Norris that made that call. I would have been gutted if it had have been the team that cost him the win. In a way, It's great that Norris was the person that cost himself the win. It was gutting. It was really, really gutting for him, but I think he'll be better off for it.
Absolutely. Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
We're taking a long time to get through the field. We might try and move through quickly, but I do want to talk about Alonso. Yes. I'm absolutely putting my hand up now and calling him a dirty, rotten cheat. And I'm a little bit annoyed. I'm a little bit annoyed at the stewards because it was made fairly apparent and nothing's come of it. And what I'm referring to is on the warm-up lap, on the formation lap, at the start of the race, Alonso practiced cutting turn 3, and running through the runoff area to see how fast he could do it. And all of a sudden, and I think to Crofty's credit, he spotted it and even suggested it. I think he was suggesting it in a bit of jest to say, as if. And then all of a sudden, Alonso's pulled it off. In turn 3, when everyone's trying to get through and everyone else is risking getting through the corner with the field, Alonso shoots straight out. He goes and runs between the bollards, which you're allowed to do. You're not allowed to do it for purposes of gaining an advantage. Then he gave back a couple of spots, which I think is a little bit dodgy. He shouldn't have been giving back only 2. I think there was actually 3 spots. And he was allowed to rejoin. And then nothing more was said of it. Is this Alonso at his absolute best, or is he being a dirty, rotten cheat?
Absolutely. This is the great man. This is the GOAT at his absolute finest. And you know what? Good on him for exploiting the loophole, which is exactly what it is. And I can tell you where that move come from. I loved it. I watched a replay over and over again. I thought, hang on, did he just make... I wondered if he made any effort to break. And he didn't.
No,
he just
no. He knew what he's doing.
To the outside, bang, and I love it. And you know what? Good on him, because this comes from an interview that came, I reckon it was probably around 6 that he had with I'm pretty sure it was with Ziggo Sport. And he said, I'm frustrated. I'm doing the right thing. I'm abiding by the rules. I'm watching turn one. I'm watching these blokes just do whatever they feel like on lap one, in turn one, turn two. Nothing's coming of it. And pretty much his long and short of it is, well, you know what? If they're not going to do the right thing, stuff you, neither am I. And good on him, and nothing should come of it, and nothing will come of it, and I love it. And what an absolute star. And you know what? He was nearly up into third, and I reckon conscience got the better of him, and he thought, "Whoa,
he was. I was going to say he was never going to be let to do it if he had picked up all those positions.
Oh, see, I disagree. I think he would have, because and purely on the fact that it was lap one, and we all know that pretty much the rule book starts lap two.
Yeah,
I mean, the rules in F1
his issue would have been that he practiced it. So it was a premeditated idea, and
I still reckon they would have done nothing based on the fact that it's lap one.
I think he gave back enough little positions. I think he should have been giving back 3 or 4, but he gave back the 2. I think he gave back enough positions to make it sort of go away. But you watch this loophole close. I'm with you. I think it was so Alonso-like. There was
absolutely fantastic.
So much of it that I loved. But I was like, oh, you bloody cheeky bugger. But yeah, so you watch that loophole close really quickly. I think if you seem to be deliberately doing it to gain an advantage, I think you're going to be in strife. I don't think you should be doing that.
But you know, the chicane in Sochi is the dumbest thing in the world, and it's that bloody tight. So you know what? If you can make it through there in the rapid pace that he could, you kind of deserve to make it out the other side, because you'd like to fit anything through there, to be quite honest, at that speed. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, outside the actual track itself.
I'm with you. After Alonso was Norris finishing, then Kimi Räikkönen managed to make it into 8th position.
Welcome back, Kimi.
Then it was Perez. Russell had a really great qualifying, ended up with another point. Gee whiz, once you start making points, you can't stop. Stroll and Seb came together in a couple of ways over the weekend.
Stroll and everyone came together in the last 4 laps, let's be honest.
It was an interesting situation. Gasly sort of disappeared down the track. He was looking sort of competitive there for a while, and then, probably the other one was Leclerc. Leclerc, he sort of had he was looking really on fire and then refused to come in, and it cost him big time. But that was about it. Let's get into some race rankings, mate. Who's your 3, 2, and 1?
3, 2, 1. Jeez, I haven't even thought about that. Look, 3 has to be Lando. I know he didn't win. I know he made that bad call, but outside the last 3 laps, he was untouchable all weekend.
Couldn't agree more. Yep, I'll have 3 for Lando.
You can't ignore it. I'm going to give 2 to Lewis, because the second stint was fantastic, and he's notched triple-figure Grand Prix wins, which for me we'll never see again, ever.
I'm going to give 2 to Lewis. This is getting awkward, mate.
2 highly respectable points there for Lewis. And for 1, I'm going to give it to Max because of the power through the field. I could have given it to Sainz, but you know what? Instead of getting our 1 point, mate, he gets his podium, which is, I know it's not as glamorous, but I'm going to give it to Max.
Oh, man, I don't like doing this, but I'm with you 100%. If it wasn't Max, I was going to give it to Perez, because I thought Perez's race through the field was really good, and then it sort of just disappeared. Sainz did have a good one. Ricciardo sort of made the most of it, but I'm with you, Max. I think we've got the right answers there. So, good job, well done.
Very good,
very unusual. Dud of the day, though. I'm sure we'll be different on this one.
Oh, definitely.
Who's your dud of the day, Tristan?
Who's my dud? I'm torn between 2. I really am. I'm going to split it this week. I'm going to give half a point each for my duds. I got 2. I can't possibly split it.
Right.
Dud number 1 for half of the dud of the day points has to be Lando Stroll. He started so well, then put the tyres on way too early, then went backwards, then hit his teammate, then hit Gasly, then hit the wall. I don't know what he was doing. You'll never
miss an opportunity for a Stroll dud.
Absolutely not, mate. Like, he never misses the back or the side of his opposition or a car or a wall or anything like that. That was hideous. That was by far, I reckon that was the worst 5 laps of driving I've ever seen from anyone. It was just atrocious. And the other half a point, mate, I'm going to give it to Toto Wolff for his radio messages to Lewis and to Valtteri throughout the race, based purely on the fact that I don't know why Toto is getting on the radio, sending out pointless and just ridiculous comments to his drivers saying, "Hey, Lewis, come on, you can win this." Well, yes, I'm pretty confident he knows.
I think he was excited.
9 Grand Prix. He's got 7 championships. It's like Lewis has been potting around going, "Wait, hang on. You mean I can win this Grand Prix? I've got the most dominant car and I could win? Thanks for the pep talk, Toto, because, I'm pretty sure he was going to pot around and just be happy with this." And then he got on Valtteri and said, "Valtteri, pass these 2 cars for points." And I thought, I'm pretty sure he knows that. So, Toto, get off the airwaves, mate.
Wow. That's
shocking.
That's a big one, yeah. It felt a little bit like you or I sitting on the couch, didn't it? It felt like he was sitting on the couch and he had the power to talk to them. So he was like,
"Yeah,
I'm so excited! I'm so excited! I'll press the button and I'll just tell him. I'll just tell him. You can win this, you know."
It was like the work experience kid got the headphones and said, "Go on, say something."
Yeah, I like it.
Okay, I will.
Oh, that's good. I like that. That's a good one. I like that dud.
Hideous.
For me, the dud is, unfortunately, it has to be Lando Norris.
Oh,
Lando.
That's harsh.
Lando.
Did you give him 3 points as well?
Well, that's the thing. And I went for a night ride last night, and the people I was riding with suggested that maybe the dud has to come with the 3 points. And I thought about it. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to give it to Bottas because
It's
Bottas
ridiculous as it sounds. It makes sense.
Bottas was stupid, but Lando cost himself because he was too pig-headed. It was in such a hard spot, but yeah, Lando gets 3 points and the dud of the day. F1.5, this is interesting. I am very interested in what's going on here.
Before we get into F1.5, 2 quick things, mate. What do you think of the Lando reprimand for cutting across?
He didn't get one, did he?
It's just a reprimand. It's just a slap on the wrist.
Oh, right. Sorry, yes.
Yeah, it's just don't do that again. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I think it's okay this time around.
I do too. I think.
Yeah. I don't want to see it done again.
It's okay.
Well, I mean, it was all about. It wasn't about being unsafe, and I liked that there was a bit of common sense in there. It wasn't that he was being unsafe. He couldn't get that car around, and that's a really tight pit entry, and it's a right angle corner. It was really difficult. And then I did hear someone say, "Well, keep going." Like, you didn't have to cut back into the pits, but he was on the most dangerous tyres out there. It would have been more dangerous for him to continue going. So, look, I was okay with the reprimand. It didn't cause an accident. A bit of common sense was applied. Yeah. I mean, sure, he could have slowed down a little bit more, but gee whiz, it was a really tricky situation. I mean, we saw Hamilton hit the wall in that pit lane. We've seen it become really difficult. So, yeah, I was okay with it.
All right. For listeners, I'd be interested to know what you think of that. Like, are you okay?
We don't want to
reprimand.
We don't want to continue this sort of business.
No, and then you know what my other thought was? What if it was Lewis? What would we be saying if it was Lewis? Or if it was Max? What would we be saying if it's the 2 championships?
That's a really good point.
Something to think
really
about.
good point.
What would we be saying if it was those 2?
Slap him with a penalty would be my comment in that situation.
Absolutely. And you know what? Lastly, before we go into F1.5, go and have a look. For anyone that hasn't seen, mate, and I don't know if you've seen either, get on F1's Instagram, have a look at the 2-minute clip that they've put together of what they've described as exceptional wet weather driving, which is Alonso, which is Leclerc, and which is Perez. And, mate, if you want to see a masterclass in wet weather driving, watch Alonso and how he negates the track as opposed to Perez and Leclerc, who are pretty much like me on a Sunday at a golf course.
I have seen
it. Just zigzagging across the fairway. It was just...
The other one is...
Beautiful to watch.
You can watch 11 minutes, the last 11 minutes of Max's race, and on board, it's fantastic with all the radio as well.
View. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, F1.5, let's get into it. I'm so excited because pretty much the entire order of the championship has changed.
Wow.
And I'm so excited that has happened.
Gee whiz, I wonder who's on top.
All right, I've split it in half because I said last week that we are relegating people.
Yes.
And I have officially relegated 2, 4, 6, 7.
Wow, really? That's a lot.
Bang. Well, they're out of it. They're that far out of it already. So
that makes sense. We don't mess around here at Beyond the Racing Line.
No, absolutely not. You're not going to get a back and forth conversation with us about F1.5 like you do with Michael Massey and, the Stewarts. It's just, no, you've been relegated. So
that's good.
We will continue to update the points on those people, but they are officially out of it. They're not mathematically out of it, but they are officially out of it. But pretty much for either of these 7 to even make the top 3, the top 5 are going to have to DNF about 5 times in a row, which is not going to happen. All right, so bottom to top. I'm going to include Kubica, mate, because he's still part of it.
Good.
So Kubica, 10 at the bottom. Mazepin jumps up from the bottom, so he's officially not the cellar dweller. Can you believe that? He was dead last to a bloke who'd only competed 2. 10 points for Mazepin as well, so he's hit double figures.
So does that mean if these guys have been relegated, are you going to tell us their scores every week?
Yeah, I'll still update the points. I think it's what the people want.
Okay, all right. I was just checking.
You want to know how badly they're going.
I don't. I want to see them gone. I want them removed. Yeah. I'll
still mention it. I think people would be disappointed if we didn't mention them. Mick 27, Latifi 45, Russell 82, Giovinazzi and Kimi. Can you believe it? Tied again.
Wow.
98. What's your prediction for these two? Who's going to win, or are they going to be tied?
Giovinazzi.
I think it's going to be a dead heat at the end of the year. We've got 7 to go. These blokes have been within points. Kimi's had COVID for 2 weeks, and he comes out and he ties it as soon as he comes back. And then Yuki Tsunoda is the last of the relegated. He's on 115, mate. He's mathematically in it, but he's too far back. I can't see Yuki finishing ahead of everyone else. So, unfortunate. Right, let's get to the big guns who are still in it. In 5th place, Seb, 135. He's teetering on the edge.
Okay.
I think for me, he's going to need a couple of wins, or he's going to need a couple of podiums, because he's only 20 points ahead of Yuki and could very well be relegated. So we don't want that. I don't want to see Seb relegated at all. So I think it would be to the detriment of the championship. Ocon, just sneaky hanging about in 4th. 174. He's just there. He's not going away.
Right.
So, still in it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Ocon? Chance?
No, it's not chance.
You don't reckon?
No.
Maybe. I reckon he could be.
Not with the way Alonso's driving. No.
That's very true. 3rd place, mate, Stroll, 188. He was off the podium, then he was back on, then he was off, and he's made his way back into it. So, a massive chance. And I'm not even going to announce second, mate, because we all know that once we announce who's first, we know who's second. It is the great man. He is on top. He is leading Fernando Alonso 211 points, and he has officially taken the lead in F1.5 from Gasly, who finds himself on 204. Hit me with your excitement around that, mate.
Wow. Oh, man.
Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
I can now.
I think I said, what did I say? I reckon I said round 9 that he's going to win. But I mean, you could ask me that round 1, I wouldn't have said it anyway. But mate, how good to see him up, and he is leading. Whoa, he's a big chance to take this out.
It's sort of, now he's in front, it all just makes sense, doesn't it? That he will go and take it. I mean, if you've got your closest rivals is Gasly
Gasly, Stroll, and probably Ocon. He's thereabouts. You can't rule him out.
Yeah, I'm surprised Stroll's still so far up there, because that hasn't really fired too many shots, has it, that Aston Martin this season?
No, and it's really hot and cold. When it's on, and when it's off, it's off.
Yep, and probably the Alpha Tauri's a little bit that way as well, but it seems like Alpine sort of made their way through, which is probably really good for the future of the team, but yeah, right, okay. I think my tip was... I can't remember I think my tip was Gasly. I think Lottie chose Ocon.
Yep, definitely. Well, if I give you a bit of a hot run of form for him, this is how he's taken the lead. Since round 7 through to now, he hasn't missed the podium. He's been second or first in F1.5.
It's consistent. That's
a hot streak.
I've just changed my mind. You definitely have to tell us the rest of the crew because it is a form guide that we don't have. If you don't finish in the top 10,
That's
we
right.
don't get that form guide. So, yeah, it is important, and I'm next to certain that teams are picking their drivers for next season and seasons beyond using this
Based
information.
on 1.5. I think so. I think it should be the official. If there's like a format to choosing a driver, I think it should very much be officially it. So
100%.
There we are. F1.5. Oh, it's all happening.
The championship that everyone wants to know about. Interesting.
The championship we want to know about. I love it.
Yep. Let's get into Beyond a Bet. Watsy sent through his bets. He jumped on Ricciardo for a podium finish. I'll tell you what, Watsy's bets are just defined by the Norris situation. So close, yet just not quite enough.
They really are.
Because Ricciardo finished fourth, and he was looking at an $80 return if Ricciardo could have finished on the podium. He had Norris for the win, outright betting. He's only going to pick up $29 for that one, but my goodness, that was so close. So close.
Absolutely.
So both those,
close yet so far.
Both those bets, very, very close. Then he came up with these really weird bets which his betting agencies they're offering. And this one was Lewis to win, which was a lock, but it was with Norris to podium, Ricciardo to finish top 6, and 17 or more classified drivers. And that one was incredibly close too, because we only had one driver, so all it was missing was the Norris podium.
Yeah, bit of a fruit salad.
And that one was going to pick up. I don't know how much he put on it.
I think he put
$11 or something on it. So that one's going to pick up $160. That was so close. And then his last one was Kimi, Giovinazzi, Seb, all to finish in the points, and that was worth $41 per dollar.
I like how they've spelt Seb totally wrong in that too, which I'm only just looking at for the Sebastian.
Yeah. Interesting. So anyway, he was that one. Kimi was there, but the rest weren't. So yeah, that one not so far. But yeah, the rest.
It breaks my heart though. I need to be on the bet.
What's that?
Where's the safety car bet, Jay? Like
I don't think
mention it week in, week out.
I don't think he's picked it up once yet. Who was the safety car at this event?
Aston Martin.
There you go. Interesting.
We've even had fans pick up the safety car bet.
You know, we've had plenty of fans make. I think they're building houses on that safety car bet currently. I think there's money being made all over the place.
It's free cash.
That was the other one for me. I thought when Norris was in front, I was with him at one stage. I'm like, no, don't pit, because there'll be a red flag and you'll run across the line with a red flag. Or sorry, not a red flag. There'll be a yellow flag, and it will be formation finish. And I was like, don't pit. And I think someone actually mentioned that from his team is that was a consideration that they were talking about at the same time, whether they were thinking that someone's going to crash here. It's amazing that no one crashed properly. I know a few people slid into the wall, but if it had gone under safety car, he would have won. So. Yeah, it was.
There you go. Well, we are at Rowan Exit. We're at Turkey.
Yes,
we're at Turkey, Istanbul Park. Jay, the unofficial mayor of Istanbul, he will be at home right now listening to this pumped. So we'll have a safety car in Istanbul.
Let's move on to fantasy, mate. All
right, let's get on to fantasy. Let's go on to fantasy. This week in the fantasy world, let's start with my team of the week, which, as always, is our number one ranked team for the round, which is Robert S. is our number one ranked. And this is a really unusual combination of points from Robert. So I think it's Mojea Racing. Have I said that right? I really feel like I haven't. Mojeha. Mojea Racing? Mojea Racing?
Yeah, I haven't got it.
Robert, let me know how poorly I've gone with pronouncing that. Robert is the number one ranked team of the week. He scored 240 points, which is massive. He did use his Mega Driver on Lewis, and his team looks like this. 156 from Lewis, his Turbo Driver with Lando. So what a terrific combination, your Mega and your Turbo. Imagine if that had to come off in the order that we were all hoping it was going to come off. And then he had the Red Bulls as his team for 36. However, Scoring 240, he still had the following. Latifi with 0, Gasly with 6, and Russell with 8.
Wow.
Which is phenomenal. He's banked all his round points with just 2 drivers and a team.
That's the power of the Mega Drive, I suppose, isn't it?
Incredible. So, so Robert's my team of the week, and our number 1 ranked team as well. And let's have a look at us, mate. You are going to kick us off this week, mate. You are the best ranked team out of the 3 of us.
Yes.
You finished 9th for the round. You are currently ranked 33rd, however. You scored 148 for the week, and you scored the following. You had Verstappen 33, Sainz 31, Gasly 6, Russell 8, Turbo on Norris for 34, and you had the Red Bulls on 36. So, solid, mate. Solid round of points. Jay is next. He was second best. He was 15th for the week overall, which is good. And he had Norris for 17, Dan for the Turbo driver on 54, he had Russell on 8, Verstappen 33, the Red Bulls as well on 36. He had Ocon on -5.
Ooh.
So that's Jay's as well. So 15th for the week, 17th overall. And then I had an absolute shocker. This would have to be my worst round for the year. I was ranked 37th.
Ooh.
Ouch. 110 points is all I could manage. And I'm ranked 15th overall for the year. I had Verstappen 33, Fernando 22. I had Perez with the Turbo again. I'm giving that the flick. 16 for that. Norris 17, the McLaren's 34, and I had Mick who got me -12.
Oh.
So,
I'm interested, how does Ocon end up with -5 points?
I have no idea. Just a straight DNF is -15. So,
but Ocon he finished, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
It goes with, he probably
lost positions. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, so it's interesting that's
interesting.
How far
down, yeah, -5. Teammate out drive, out qualify, all that kind of stuff. So, anyway, that's it. That is fantasy for this week, mate.
There you go.
Thank you to Dr. Auto Art too. We forgot to mention. Thank you to Chris, Dr. Auto Art, who is going to be sponsoring and handing out our prize giving very soon for that. 7 weeks we'll have that for Chris. So I would be interested to know I wonder what people would choose.
I know. There was the work from Monza where Ricciardo and Lando are embracing. Beautiful.
Yeah, I love that.
Oh, such a good one. That was that'd be my pick. Somehow from 33rd position, I don't think I'm going to be the one choosing it, and I know I'm not allowed to win it anyway. But I might. You know what I
reckon make a great bit of artwork is Rosberg jumping off his Mercedes in Abu Dhabi when he wins in 16. Wouldn't that look good? Like if I'm trying to think if I won what I'd pick from Chris, I think that'd be cool. Or Seb bowing down.
Yep.
On the pit straight, I think that'd be cool. I can go get something like that.
Or Verstappen bashing Ocon in the weigh room.
That'd be good. Or, you know what else would be good? Mark with his helmet off in Brazil, just giving the wave. That'd be a tidy. Anyway, so get over to Dr. Auto Art on Instagram. Thank you, Chris, for your terrific prize sponsorship. Maybe some ideas, Chris, that we've thrown you there.
What about when Hamilton throws a hat at Rosberg in the green room?
Oh, that'd be good. Maybe multi 21.
I mean, we've lost out on that now, haven't we? Where they do all that stuff out in the pit lane. It's a shame. I missed that moment. It's something I didn't know I was going to miss, but where they get out of the car, they do all their cuddles, they weigh in, and then they go up to the green room while they wait to go on the podium. That doesn't happen anymore, have you noticed? They do all that now out in the pit lane.
I'm alright with that, I don't think.
No, we've missed out on some great... Remember when Kimi came and replaced Max in the green room? Some great moments in there. I used to love seeing what was going on.
Terrific moments. But then, you've also got good paddock moments. Remember when Massa come up and tapped Hamilton on the shoulder? It was like, good drive in Singapore, and knocked him off, and Hamilton turned around. He's like, don't touch me. And nearly blows. That was a while ago. Remember that one?
All right, okay. News, mate. We're looking for some news. And Paul Ricard has been... it's funny. I mean, one moment, French racing is all up and about where they've got some really fantastic drivers, Gasly, Leclerc. There's also Boucher, who is a possibility to come into the sport. And they've done all this work on Paul Ricard. I'm really surprised to see it go. I mean, I'm not overly disappointed by that, for sure, because I can't stand the joint. But I'm really interested. What was the reason behind it losing its position?
I have no idea what the reason was. I genuinely don't know. It just said Paul Ricard is gone. And
yeah, I did a little bit of hunting around for
I think it's great.
For a reason behind it. I mean, there's talk that Portugal is going to replace it on a permanent basis, which is
much better.
I couldn't agree more. But yeah, I was really surprised. It annoyed me that I thought that this race was going to be around for quite a while. I wonder whether they're going to try and opt for it. I think Formula One's picked up on this idea of ours. I think it was last season where we include some one-off races, like where we rotate through some tracks that we don't often go for. I had heard that they were looking into being a less permanent track, but coming back on a visit from time to time, which I thought was...
Well, there's talk of South Africa is going to make an appearance.
Well, yeah, they're looking for that.
Possibly. And we used to race at South Africa anyway, so...
Yep.
Long time ago. So absolutely. I'm okay with that. Look, you know, I to be honest with Paul Ricard going, I really have no feelings on it because it's been bad for a long time. Fans don't enjoy it. And if anything, that's probably enough reason for me to get rid of it. Like it is with Sochi. It's trash. We don't like it. See you later. They're doing works on Abu Dhabi at the moment. I don't know if that's going to increase anything. I think if we see another pour.
No, I think it's looking good. I've heard a few.
We'll have to wait and see, to what we got there. But look, for me, if nothing changes in Abu Dhabi, if it's just another end of year,
money talks, my friend.
Christmas parade, I guess, is what you can sort of call it, can't you?
Abu Dhabi will be around for a long time because that money talks far too much in this situation.
Yeah.
So
hopefully not. They've got to lift their game. So let's hope the track works.
Miami for next year has been announced. It's going to be a May event.
Awesome.
It looks like a great track, doesn't it?
Looks great. That means we're going to Miami straight after we're coming to Australia next year. I do actually have the calendar here, mate. The leaked proposed calendar.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, let me have a look here. I do have the proposed calendar here, which I saw.
I'm guessing we're starting in Bahrain again. Is that what it's suggesting?
Yeah, so these are all provisional, and it came out a couple of weeks ago. When did this come out? This came out on... No, I haven't got the date when it came out. Anyway, provisional dates for 2022. We're going to start on the 20th of March in Bahrain. We're going to go to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Then we're coming down under, April the 10th. Clear your calendar. Quick stop over to China at Shanghai. Then we're going to Miami, Catalonia, Monaco, Baku, Canada. Geez, I hope we get back to Canada soon, mate. I've missed that place. Silverstone, Red Bull Ring. It'll be Imola now because it was Paul Ricard or Imola.
Yep.
So now it will be Imola. Lara Ring, Spa, Zandvoort, Monza, farewell to Sochi. Then, this is the one that's up in the air. It's either going to be Singapore or Istanbul Park. Now, I don't know if that's going to be a rotational basis or if it's actually the COVID restrictions which are stopping us from going to Singapore. So, Reed's has his priority, but Istanbul Park is the backup for that. Then we'll go to Suzuka, Circuit of the Americas, Mexico's Marina, which I find it odd that we're going to Miami so early, but then we're going to Mexico and USA at the end of the year.
Yeah.
It would make sense to do an American leg.
No, well, I think that was around the idea of building interest from one part of the season and then bringing it back again. So
yeah, that makes sense. Go to Miami. Gee, wasn't that great? Let's go to Circuit of the Americas later on the year. Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's the idea. So yeah. It'll be. I'm okay with it. I think it'll be interesting enough.
Oh, they were good. Nice to see some new things there. We'll say farewell to Paul Ricard. We'll say farewell to Sochi. 2023, we'll have 2 new ones. Jeddah's going to be great. Zandvoort's awesome. I'm pumped for Miami. I hope we get back to Singapore. If not, Imola's a great. Istanbul, sorry, is a terrific replacement.
Only one seat to fill still. Doesn't seem to be any news coming out of that at the moment. So
who do you think gets it?
I'm starting to think Giovinazzi's going to keep it.
Really?
I was thinking Joe early in the week. I don't know. I really don't know. I can't see it being Piastri. There doesn't seem to be enough momentum behind Piastri, which really, really worries me because I'm worried. I mean, he is an incredible talent. I think everyone's understands what a talent he is, but he's an Alpine driver. He's a Renault Junior driver.
So is Joe, though.
So is Joe, but yeah, Joe's got money to go and do whatever he wants. So
I think Piastri gets that, mate. I'm fully sold.
Really?
Full commit, full send. I'm going to say Piastri gets it. How can you ignore a bloke that goes F3 Rookie Year Championship, F2 Rookie Year Championship?
The likes of Leclerc has done the same. I think Russell was in a similar situation. So
how do you ignore that?
I couldn't agree more. But I just don't think that's the way that team operates. I don't.
You know what I think? I think the signing of Valtteri helps them make that decision.
Possibly, and not having that Ferrari. I mean, it's not like Giovinazzi's been the best option for them in the past as well, and so I feel like maybe they've been unleashed a little bit. But yeah, I'm hoping. I'm certainly hoping.
I think Joe's want for a 2-year contract when they're only offering one.
Yeah,
I think if Piastri. You would hope Piastri's going, well, if you're only offering one, you know what, I'll take one.
Yeah, my original tip was Schumacher, and apparently everything's okay with Schumacher and Mazepin now because Mazepin's invited him to Moscow. I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit worried for Schumacher that he might actually get off by the Russians, so I'd be very careful where you're going there, mate.
Something like that.
Yeah, so anyway. Any other news, mate?
Any other news? I think that's it on the news front.
Yeah.
With everything, actually. Yeah, that is. It was just the driver market and those kind of things with the
tracks
this week.
Yep, absolutely. On the socials this week, we had, and this one I quite enjoy this one, describe the Russian GP in 3 words. Nick Butler said slippery when wet, absolutely spot on. Someone else sent me a message of just add water, which I think was really good. The amazing race, surprisingly great race. I think that's probably reflecting your ideas there, Tristan. Adams was listen to pit wall. That's not bad, but Nick Butler said to him, update Google weather, McLaren, so I don't mind that one. So absolutely effing gutted. Experience. Big for Max. I couldn't agree with that one anymore, Chris. Big for Max. This is massive for Max this weekend. Lucky Lewis again from Nigel. I think, I don't know if I agree with that one. I don't think there was anything around luck. I thought he did everything he needed to do. Out of the control, the Heartbreak Kid. So I'm loving the socials, Tristan. I'm really enjoying seeing everyone getting involved. Anything else that caught your eye, mate, on the socials? Oh, we've actually lost him, unfortunately. Lost all.
The Schumacher documentary.
Here
what
he
do
is.
You think?
He is back.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest. I haven't actually seen it yet.
I put a post up. I asked people what they thought. Brit just said they were a lot short of Germans in the karting world. And Paul Cook, he said, it was only 20 minutes into it, and said he could already tell what he didn't like about it. Dean Holt, just sort of his reaction was not bad. Royce Peters, just something to watch tonight. So you know what, I kind of mirror those because it's good, but it's not what I thought it was going to be. I think the way it's made is, if you're someone who isn't a fan of the sport, you will love it and you'll appreciate it and you'll learn the backstory and you'll learn the info about the family. Mick at the end is nothing short of heartbreaking. If anything, watch the last 10 minutes. But yeah, I think us as fans and the story that we know of Schumacher, it was just okay. Even DC, I'd be interested to see what you think of DC's story of Michael when he talks, because even before DC went to tell the story, I've heard that story in so many interviews from DC over the years. I knew exactly what he was going to say, and then he said it, and I thought, this is how it's going. So, yeah.
It's been described as a love letter from his wife to Mick.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Mm.
But I mean, you know what? I've heard, and I haven't seen it all yet. I tried to start watching it with when I went to visit some in-laws, and we started watching it, and there was too much talking going on. I just wanted to sit down and watch it. I haven't had a chance to catch up on it yet, but I was really enjoying what I'd seen to that point. And
yeah.
I've heard lots of people say that it's not really giving away much, but I thought, from what I saw, it was a really great celebration of Mick, and we sort of forgot, not Mick, of Michael, we've sort of forgotten how wonderful he is because of the situation that he's in. We do forget how great he is, and I think it's a really important time to remember that, to reflect and enjoy how great he was. So, yeah, no, I'm looking forward to watching the rest. I'm going to get onto that this week before my holiday's finished. But yeah, it certainly wasn't what lots of people were expecting, and in a way, you sort of hope that Netflix does a little bit better, don't you? Because they do lots of really great in-depth interviews, but it was, very much Schumacher-driven, I suppose, wasn't it?
Very much, very much.
Off to Istanbul Park, Turkey, next time out. We're back to 11 o'clock start, unfortunately, for us, so 11 p.m. start for us for the race. What are you looking forward to, Tristan, about it?
I am looking forward to Jay on the podcast the following Tuesday. Just having the mayor of Istanbul.
He loves this place.
And we were giving us his thoughts.
We were teased with a race last time, weren't we? And then they messed up the track so badly. It's all better now. The track's better, Tristan, so we'll be right to go and enjoy it.
That's
properly.
what I'm looking forward to. I reckon
we were robbed.
I'm predicting Jay will have heavily prepared notes for next week. He could very well, and maybe he could host, mate.
I don't think the offer is certainly there. I don't think we've ever seen Jay with heavily prepared notes. It might take a Ricardo win to see that happen.
I know. Remember the time I showed him my F1.5 notes and he showed me a picture of his house?
Yeah, that's right.
He was drawing mid-episode.
Due to the house halfway through. So, what's your prediction for Istanbul? I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing it in its full glory because we were certainly robbed last year. I mean, it was interesting watching a race with absolutely no grip. Don't get me wrong, it was interesting, but it should have happened somewhere else in the calendar because Istanbul can produce a great race and we get to see all the wonderful turns and whatnot around it. What are you looking forward to and what's your prediction?
Oh, geez, prediction. I think it's going to be a max.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's going to be a max win, I do, which is really, really good.
Yep.
This could be... I get a feeling that this could be Lewis's fall through the pack. It could be a sixth or a seventh finish for Lewis. I don't know. I just got that feeling. Will he take an engine penalty? Let's talk to he's going to need one. So does he take it now?
Does the championship lie on whether he takes it or not? Does it sit with whether he has to take this penalty?
If your number one rival has got a fresh kit in the back and you don't,
and he's only 2 points behind,
and you're only 2 points. If it was me, and I was racing you, and you just took your new engine, I would take it straight away because I want the same legs that you've got. I don't want you to get away from me at all. So maybe it could, and maybe. That's
the other thing. You want to be able to use, you don't want to be taking it with a couple of races to go because you want to be able to use that fresh engine with as much.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So look, that's my prediction. I reckon if they're going to throw it, I'll throw it now because you can pass it Istanbul Park. No worries at all.
Yeah.
So I think Max will win. Oh, gee, dare I say it? I reckon we could very much see McLaren on the podium again, mate. To be quite honest,
Do you think?
it's not a slow speed track, and the McLaren.
Yeah, but it's all about speed through corners here.
It is all about speed through corners.
That McLaren behaves itself when it's really slippery in straight lines. I'm not entirely like Norris certainly has it down back going through corners, but yeah, they are fast though. They are fast corners, which will sort of.
Very good. So that's my prediction. It's a Max win. It's Lewis is going to take his penalty, but he's only going to finish 7th. And yeah, I reckon we're going to have a McLaren on the podium. I'm not going to say who I think it'll be because one or the other will be fine. To be quite honest.
Okay, all right. I think we'll see Perez fly up the grid. I think he'll get a podium. Max will be the winner.
Nice.
And I think Ferrari have been a little bit understated. I think a new MGU-H in like not just a unit, but I think it's an upgraded happening in there. Upgraded part for that. Yeah,
which will disappear. It's going to disappear next year, I think, isn't it? Or the year after? Or is it the MGU-K that's going to go?
No, that's a little bit later on, I think. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that I think they showed a little bit of pace, but it was sort of hidden with the weather. So I think the Ferraris are going to be making a step in that battle with McLaren. So yeah, it'll be. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing it in its full flight, not being hindered by a slippery condition where they've resurfaced the track recently. Thank you very much for joining me, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you very much to Tyson's Hodges Trio. Thank you very much to Dr. Auto Art for our prizes. We'll be back. We'll be back after Istanbul. Check out our social medias. Certainly pass the pods on to your friends who are F1 obsessed. We've had lots of really great feedback from new listeners lately, which is really lovely to hear. And certainly do give us feedback. Good, bad, or otherwise. Send the good to me, the bad to Tristan, and the otherwise to Watsy. I reckon that seems fairly fair. But yeah, until then, we look forward to speaking to you again. Goodbye.